Topping the scores today is 17-year-old Greg Rawson from Parkes. He finished the 18 holes with a 4-under par 68. Close behind is current Australian age champion Tom Arnold from Queensland with a 2-under par 70. The Jack Newton Classic is now the most popular junior tournament in Australia. Nearly 500 competitors applied for just 216 places in the comp. 5 players also flew out from the Philippines to take part. Next year it's expected the international list could grow to include players from India, Indonesia and Korea. And that sits well with organisers because that's why the Classic was set up, to give talented country players the opportunity to compete at an international standard. Del Bannerman from Belmont could already sit comfortably at that level. She finished the best of the girls with a 1/75. However, young Clint Newton couldn't get into rhythm and counted around 100.
Businesses in the Hunter Street Mall pay on average about $22,000 each in council rates each year.
We'll be approaching property owners next year to pay extra.
About $8,000 extra. The City Centre Management Committee needs more money to cover an $85,000 shortfall on last year's budget. Also, the group wants to spend more on promotions, training, more on improving the CBD's environment. But some on council believe it's time to tighten the belt, not loosen it.
But my view is that we should reallocate our resources and spend our money more wisely, and we can do that by cutting back on expenditure.
City Centre says it's had no complaints from local businesses. The proposal will go before council next week. It was action from the kick-off, players putting their bodies on the line, Marconi and Australian keeper Mark Schwarzer not taking a backward step. The Breakers were firing in the first half but couldn't put the chances away. But in the 15th minute, Meredith kicked in a cross, lower header, and Graham Jennings tied it up, putting the ball in the back of the net. 1-0 and the heat was turned up. Marconi's Palucci went in hard and took a yellow card for his aggression. Minutes later he was in strife again and was sent from the field. The Breakers looked good playing a side down a man, but Marconi showed their style coming back in the second half with 2 goals. The final score, Marconi 2, Newcastle 1. The Breakers now bow out of the pre-season National Cup. Peter Ryan, NBN News.
It's pitch black and there's a little glowing oasis at Anna Bay. The latest in Sports Under Lights started a week ago and already golfers are heading to the course in droves. Open until 10 o'clock most nights, the 9-hole complex is proving a boon for shift workers and family groups. The entire course is bathed in light, the power coming from their own diesel generator. And although it's lit up from all angles, the floodlights don't seem to put too many people off.
You can follow the ball all the way to wherever it lands.
And for those that are still perfecting that Greg Norman style stroke, chip or drive, the mistakes don't get lost in the dark.
I have always found my ball. Even when it's in the trees, I know that my ball is in the trees. I always find my ball, yeah.
Operators say if the demand continues to rise, they may consider opening around the clock during summer.
The long-running campaign by the families of police officers to keep them at home boiled over. More than 20 Newcastle police have been notified they're on the first draft of a rotational transfer scheme designed to relieve police serving in Sydney.
The initial transfers are going ahead. I will not interfere in the Commissioner's decision. It's an operational decision and no minister should ever interfere with an operational decision.
Police Minister Terry Griffiths met the wrath of families fearing upheaval. The Minister went toe-to-toe with the group which, despite suggesting a number of alternate proposals, hasn't been able to sway the Police Department's determination to proceed with the transfers.
To go back and admit that they've made mistakes in their calculations means that the rotational policy isn't necessary at all.
If we find that policy is not working, then we'd be sensible enough to re-look at it. But somebody has to come up with a sensible plan that is fair for everybody.
Back on the home front, senior police say there's no agenda to amalgamate detectives in the Charlestown and Belmont stations, but member for Charlestown Richard Face isn't convinced.
And on this time, I'm fed up. I've gone to the Mayor, the local commercial interests in the area and the neighbourhood watchers, and they're going to have a real fight on their hands if they try to remove those detectives on this say-so that by combining them, somebody's going to get better service. A lot of hogwash.
It was a slow but steady start for the 121st Singleton show. Sideshow Alley was getting wound up for what's expected to weekend, while in the judging ring, cattle and their handlers were into the serious business of deciding best in breed. One feature of this year's event is the launch of an appeal to complete the $100,000 restoration of Singleton Showgrounds' historic grandstand.
After a long 12 months, we have taken positive steps, as you can see, that we are going to restore our old grandstand, which has got a lot of heritage attached to it, and we feel that by the positive steps that we've taken, the community and of Singleton and surrounding districts will be right behind us.
Horse sports will take command on centre stage over the 3 days, with 500 riders converging on the show for Sunday's events, which will keep 6 rings operating. A rodeo is also on the program, and some budding cowboys were getting practice on this mechanical bucking bull. The one was to find the easy way to get saddle sore, with the beast affectionately called Hacksaw. Growth of the area between Maryland and Minmi will form Newcastle's newest suburb over the next 25 years. A workshop involving landowners, residents, council staff and government departments today discussed draft plans for the area. Councillor Greg Hees chaired the workshop and says a number of issues have to be addressed.
Should private development and land com development go ahead at the same time, or should one follow the other? You know, which areas do we develop first? How are we going to be sure that all the community facilities like bus transport and shops and schools are delivered when they're needed and not sort of 15 and 20 years later?
Residents' hopes for further input on the development have received a boost, with an assurance a community advisory panel will be established.
Comments on this draft plan finish at the end of the month, and we want to set it up sort of around about then, so that the panel can have consider the comments that have been made in response to this exhibition of this draft.
One factor which is expected to determine the future of the plans for the corridor is the Ironbark Creek Catchment Management Study, which will decide how much water will be allowed to inundate the neighbouring wetland.
All was quiet at the Bullaroo plant this morning. The smelter was closed for most of the day as workmen repaired the main furnace, damaged during a series of explosions last night. Residents reported hearing 3 loud bangs just after 10 o'clock. Pasminco says it was caused when an employee pierced the lining of the furnace with an oxyacetylene welder. Water leaked into the furnace and reacted with the molten metal. No one was injured in the explosions, which the company described as relatively major. The Environment Protection Authority is investigating.
The explosion was contained within the blast furnace, but it did generate an emission of dust.
Most of the dust was contained, minimising the environmental impact. It's not the first time explosions have occurred. The EPA will meet with management to work out how to prevent it happening again. A recent $16 million upgrade of the furnace was supposed to prevent environmental problems like this from occurring. General Manager of Pasminco, Alan Roberts, declined to be interviewed on camera today. However, the company did say that the section of the plant involved was not included in the upgrade. The company has launched its own investigation. Jodie McKay, NBN News.
A commission of inquiry has been set up to advise the state government on whether the development proposal should go ahead. The commissioner and a group of more than 20 people were shown the existing facilities just north of Scone in the Hunter Valley. The proposal from joint venturers Brown and Hatton and Danpork is to increase pig numbers from 22,000 to 85,000 and build a meatworks killing up to 600,000 pigs per year. While it is a public inquiry, media cameras were allowed only into certain areas. One shed where pigs were tied by the neck in small cages was off limits. Danpork claiming the cameras could create health problems. Protesters say effluent from the piggery could pollute farmlands. The Commissioner was advised on soil quality and taken on a tour of nearby properties. The joint venturers say their land is in good condition after more than 20 years of the existing piggery.
Our farm managers are producing crops that our neighbours are not. And to me, that's the proof of the pudding.
Danpork will make a further submission to the Commissioner in about 2 weeks, and there will be another public hearing in a month. A final report on the Commission of Inquiry is not expected until early next year. Peter Ryan, NBN News. Hunter Valley wines rate with the best in the world, and 17 small winemakers have entered this year's competition, hoping to gain some recognition. Judges smelling and tasting and spitting their way through 150 entries.
Wines are more individual because they've been made in quite small batches.
The winners will be announced on Thursday night. Meanwhile, Rosemount Wines, which has a vineyard at Denman, has won a small contract with the opening of trade with South Africa. It's only 800 cases, but the company is hoping it will lead to more business.
This green has been the area's talking point for 60 years now, not because of any controversy, but it's where the problems of society and Lambton are solved. A natter between ends often turns into a quick conference about each other's form. Lambton Park is a club unlike any other. The only drink served in the clubhouse is cordial. With no liquor licence and no pokies, the club survives completely on its own fundraising.
We're very self-sufficient and we have a very good treasurer. She's been our treasurer for the last 10 years and she keeps a firm hold on the finances.
However, the club has only 130 current players and memberships are dwindling. Officials are now saying if it doesn't pick up, they may be forced to close.
Well, unfortunately, we've had 2 clubs in the district have closed down because of that fact that not because they're unfinancial, but because they haven't any members.
But that was the last thought on everyone's mind today. Even club patron Jean Wright, who recently had a leg amputation, turned up to join in today's play. There's been a lot of determination and sweat going to this green. During the war, it was turned over to the Army as an anti-aircraft battery. And when the ladies got it back at the end of the war, it had fallen into total disrepair and was a mass of weeds. The then club president took it upon herself to totally rebuild it by hand. Cecilia Iverson was 61 at the time and moved 25 tonnes of soil on her own and replanted all the grass. And there hasn't been a need for a returf yet. The ladies will continue their celebrations through the week with various competitions.
It was a glittering presentation night with more than 500 people on hand to see the best talent in Newcastle rewarded for their efforts. Best duo or trio went to halfback. The jazz band section was taken out by Blue Room, while Gold Cadillac won the Best Variety Show Band award. Sligo Maid took out the Country Bush Band title and Arvidsson Price the Top 40 Covers Band. But cleaning up last night was singer-songwriter Anthony Lee. Anthony was named Best Soloist, Best Ballad Songwriter and Best Rock Songwriter. He also received the prestigious Performer of the Year award. Anthony is currently starring in his own production called Who at the King's Theatre in Lambton, but he says it's been difficult trying to make it in Newcastle with little, if any, support from local radio stations.
Well, radio stations, they just seem frightened, you know, and they don't want to give the people here the chance they deserve. Because they could make an artist here in Newcastle without the artist having to go away and then come back.
Anthony, though, is not perturbed. Next year he's set himself another challenge.
I'm moving into TV and film next year. I've written a screenplay for a movie, and I'm going to start shooting a TV series after the new year.
Jodie McKay, NBN News.
The lake was still restless this morning after being whipped into waves by the overnight blow.
At the peak of the blow, it was quite unnerving. The whole building was shaking, and I noticed the gauge suddenly shoot up to about 90 plus kilometres an hour.
2 o'clock this morning, they were breaking over Belmont Jetty.
In Belmont Bay, boats dragged their moorings, some smashing into other craft as they surfed towards the shore. Large and small were left stranded. The cost of salvage added to the damage bill. Reports of boats and navigational markers adrift were still being received mid-morning at the Volunteer Coastal Patrol base at Pelican, which coordinated overnight search and salvage operations with the police launch Macquarie. A family holidaying on a houseboat at Wangi was towed to safety after it dragged anchor.
They were in danger of colliding with other cruisers which are anchored in the area.
Inland, wild storms also struck Tamworth, blasting houses in the Oxley Vale area. Roofs were blown off, a new almost complete house was destroyed. Its owner-builder lucky to escape with his life.
I could have been worse, I could have been in there with it and hurt or maimed or anything, but I'm not, so that's lucky.
State emergency services crews worked through the night, clearing fallen trees and sealing homes against the weather. There were also widespread reports of crop damage. Andrew Lobb, NBN News.
As far as time behind the wheel is concerned, 24-year-old Michael Guest is a baby. Most of the drivers he is competing against in the Australian Championship are 10 years his senior and slowed him up at all in a sport where it pays to stretch the limits. In just their first year of production class, Mike and navigator John Heap have formed a formidable combination.
Go, watch hole. Beautiful, stay in, that's it.
The pair quickly learned that a mix-up can be costly. An accident in the early rounds cheated them of a win and provided the panel beater with thousands of dollars worth of work.
We were trying hard, clipped a stump on the apex of a corner and the car ended up upside down in the trees and back down on the road, and it happens as quick as that.
Since then, the car's been totally rebuilt and shows no sign of stress at over 200 kilometres an hour. And there's no second thoughts behind the wheel either, as Mike puts the hammer down harder.
Once you're concentrating hard, it's just like ballet dance, you know. It's all very smooth and flowing and very rhythmical.
And he'll need that flow this weekend in the second last round of the National Championship in Tasmania. A win there could push him to second place, and there's a pretty good bet he could put a mortgage on the Rookie of the Year award. Darren Curtis, NBN News.
Australia's most technologically advanced railway rolling stock, including passenger freight and maintenance units, went on display at the former Honeysuckle Goods Yard. The collection featured Freight Rail's new coal wagons and bogies, the Newcastle-designed and built City Rail Tangara carriage and the 81 class loco. Track maintenance equipment was also on show, including Australia's most sophisticated rail grinding machine, which was built in Perth by Spenno Rail Australia. The 125-tonne machine is fully computerised. 2 screens in the driver's cabin enable him to select grinding modes and monitor the operation. As the machine travels along the track, it reshapes any rails which have developed defects from continual pounding by heavy axle loads, such as with the latest coal wagons. Grinding the rails increases their useful life and promotes lower fuel consumption for locomotives, leading to greater efficiency and lower operating costs. Catherine Lamond, NBN News.
This oval will become an open-air classroom next year. In a breakaway from standard subjects, Year 7 students will be offered soccer studies. However, it won't be just running around the park all day. They will also have to continue the normal curriculum. The course will involve plenty of hours in the classroom discussing rules, moves and program development. In cooperation with the Northern Soccer Federation, exams will be set on each topic, but practical work will obviously play a major part. And acceptance into the course won't come easily.
We'll know those that are serious about this. You just can't walk into this program. There's an application form, there's a screening, you have to come in for an interview and an assessment. And with our expertise, I'm sure we'll have the right people in it.
Each year the hours required will increase, and by the time the course gets to Year 12 it will be a full unit approved subject. From there it's envisaged the most talented will be heading to the Institute of Sport or playing for Australia. A program of this standard requires the best facilities, and already the school's begun an extensive rebuilding program. $120,000 has been spent on constructing a new soccer field. A further $10,000 will be spent preparing a training pitch. And entry to the course won't be set aside just for students who live in the Whitebridge area.
The program is for anybody in the Newcastle area who has a talent for soccer, a real interest in soccer. They're welcome in the program.
A meeting for prospective applicants starts at the school in half an hour.
The ship was handed over at the Williamstown dockyard in Melbourne. The guided missile frigate is designed for multi-roles in anti-air, anti-ship and anti-submarine warfare. Costing more than $600 million, construction began in 1989. The ship was launched by Newcastle's Lady Mayoress Margaret McNaughton in February last year. Today, builders Transfield Amacon filled in the last official paperwork, signing over the vessel to its new owners, the Australian Navy. Rear Admiral Nick Hammond gave a warning to the crew of 180 officers and sailors. The ship is the first in the Navy to bear the name Newcastle, one of 6 RAN vessels of this class built in the last 15 years. She'll now undergo more sea trials before a visit to her name port. The new guided missile frigate will make her first trip to Newcastle in 7 weeks. While in port, she'll be officially commissioned in a special naval ceremony. Peter Ryan, NBN News.
Four buoyancy pipes broke away from the ocean outfall which is being built off Belmont Sewerage Treatment Plant. The work was being done for the Hunter Water Corporation by an independent contractor.
Because of the main sewerage pipe being so heavy, concrete lined, these was to hold the actual sewerage pipe off the seabed as we were towing it out through the trench.
However, everything didn't go to plan.
We're putting the pipe into place so it can all be hooked up and ready for use. And these buoyancy pipes have broken their mooring.
The pipes are made of heavy-duty polyethylene. 3 ended up on the beach, but the 4th was caught in rocks. This pipe was wedged between rocks below Redhead Bluff, but overnight it dislodged and washed up onto the beach. Lifesaver Wally Berwick says if the pipes had been swept out to sea, they could have been a danger to small vessels.
Well, if it would have got to sea, I wouldn't have liked to hit it in a small boat.
This afternoon, representatives of the contractor dragged the pipes further up the beach beyond the waterline. Jane Anderson, NBN News. Traditional music filled the Hofbrauer house. Toe-tapping wasn't confined to the dance floor. Those in the kitchen were run off their feet, offering a taste of German cuisine. Sauerkraut and bratwurst washed down with what else but German beer. Organisers of Oktoberfest gave thanks for fine weather. Usually it rains.
The German settlers are finally accepted in Australia.
It was a reunion of motoring enthusiasts, many of whom used to take part in rallies during the 50s, 60s and 70s. Despite the age of their vehicles, they couldn't be seen for dust.
This is the kind of event that enables people that have got these wonderful old classic rally cars to bring them out from the garages and stretch their legs, get out on the dirt roads, relive some of their past experiences.
Max Stahl says this race from Barnsley near Newcastle to Dungog in the Hunter Valley is an easier race than the standard car rally.
They're too hard, the roads are too hard, they're too fast because they're just an outright race against the clock on closed roads.
The 30 entrants covered 360 kilometres. Plans are already underway for next year's event.
It's the kind of adrenaline rush that hooks young speedsters, hurtling around a racetrack at 100 kilometres an hour and just centimetres off the bitumen. But more and more guys 30 years plus are putting on the P-plates for the first time.
Took one look at it and went, ah, thank you. There's the cart, here having a ball. Absolutely love it.
And although at the rear of the field, Bill says he looks forward to his fortnightly thrill.
It's like an orgasm, just lasts longer.
43-year-old Lester Eccles is an ambulance officer and became a weekend grease monkey for stress relief.
It is good for me, and I find that when I do come up here, it's gone out of my system after, say, half a dozen laps.
Lester is now a consistent top 3 finisher and is affectionately known around the pits as Grandpa.
They give me plenty of stick for an old bloke, but I'm starting to give it back to them.
But there's more than just racing. There's a matter of style. The race suits and sunglasses essential items. And for many it's a chance to act out a childhood dream of being a professional driver.
There's no difference in the actual racing. The racecraft required to run a go-kart is the same as if you were driving a Formula 1 car.
The other attraction is cost. For $3,000 a driver can buy a kart and the accessories to start racing. And by the growing list of competitors, it's a cheap price to pay for stress relief and a new social scene. Darren Curtis, NBN News.
The Albion Park Outlaws Rugby League team checked into the Great Northern Hotel for an end-of-season weekend away. This is how it was left.
I was very shocked when I seen all this. It was terrible. I've never seen anything like it before.
The wrecked rooms were discovered after the team checked out. Head housekeeper Kay Snow surveyed damage in 2 rooms. Beds had been overturned, mattresses ripped open, furniture and fittings smashed.
Took the bed and the mattress and threw that out the window. And that landed outside down there.
The Great Northern held the reputation of being the venue for all social events. It was modern in every detail. Old newspaper ads called it a rendezvous in pleasure. But even though the old pub's seen better days, staff say it didn't deserve the treatment it got this week. It's a type of tradition for teams to make end-of-season trips to Newcastle and stay at the Great Northern. But the mood turned sour after 11 footballers crammed into the hotel's lift and damaged it.
They were very big boys. They were big.
The team's bond money of $200 has been withheld. The hotel's management has had little success in tracking down those responsible to recover the damages bill. An official complaint has been lodged with the Illawarra Amateur Football Association. Andrew Lobb, NBN News.